So I don't think I'm gonna get through this whole thing, so I know we're gonna cover for Brother Breaker, what, 3 or 4 times over the next couple of months? I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And I know one of them he wants us to do on presenting the gospel in
Yes.
15 minutes or less.
That's right.
So that aside, I'm gonna try to make it fit in the other 3, we'll see,
Okay.
as much as I can.
Tired now.
No, not today.
I'm tired. I woke up last night for something.
You can do it the next time.
I go. I don't feel like talking.
It's just for us here.
Alright, so I'm doing this one on 13 months of 28 days, and it kind of ties in with what Brother Breaker's been talking about as far as the book of Daniel and Revelation pertaining to the end times. And it's loosely going to tie in with that. Only because, like Brother Breaker said last week, I believe it was, we're trying to determine when Christ is coming back at the rapture, but what calendar are we supposed to use? We're currently on a Gregorian calendar. Prior to that, there was a Julian calendar. And even if you're looking at Jewish calendars, they have a civil and a religious. One of them indicates that the new year starts in September, around the time of the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, but the other calendar that the Jews use says that April is when the new year starts. In fact, they determined that April should be the first month of the year. Okay, so the reason why 13 months and 28 days, obviously our calendar now, we have 12 months, and each month either has 30 or 31 days, and then February has either 28 or 29, depending on the leap year. So it gets kind of confusing. But a lunar calendar is actually, I think, probably the most accurate. And you'll notice like your tides, the ocean tides, are also based on every 28 days, okay? And the moon cycle is every 28 days. Now there's other things too that are every 28 days. I'm not gonna jump into that. But biologically speaking, there's other things that happen every 28 days. There's a reason for that. The word the word month obviously even stems from the word moon, actually moon, which stems from moon, okay? So all of that kind of correlates as well. So what I have drawn up here, it's not an arena. I know it looks that way. I don't know if there's a concert coming to town or not, but this is not seating. Although if anyone wants to pay for any one of these squares, I'll take it. But what this is supposed to be, and I'm not a good artist, the back of a turtle, all right? The shell of a turtle. And this isn't, I'm not gonna say dogmatically, obviously it can vary sometimes, but most of the time, if you look at the back of a turtle, its shell, you're going to have 28 sections around the perimeter of the shell. And then the interior, these larger ones, will have, typically it's going to have 13 of them. In a lot of different Indian tribes or societies, whatever else, would actually use the back of a turtle as their calendar. Okay, and then also using the tides and the moon as well. But it all correlates to, if you go to Job chapter 12, Job 12, Job 12, we're going to look at verses 7 through 10. Job 12, verses 7 through 10. And this is going to give us some basic instruction of how we can learn from the things that are around us. God put stuff around us for a reason. We tell the times and the seasons based off the stars, the sun, the moon, all of that. The entire earth and the entire universe, if you want to call it that, is basically a clock for us. And like I said, there's biological clocks, and then there's also like the lunar, the sun, and the tides. And we can use all of that to hopefully make a determination of the times and the seasons that we're in. So if you're in chapter 12 of Job, starting in verse 7, it says, "But ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air they shall tell thee, or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee, who knoweth not in all these that the hand of the Lord hath wrought this? in whose hand is the soul of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. So basically it's telling us we can learn from the things around us. God put stuff here not just for a random event. It's not just for to be aesthetically pleasing. We can actually learn from the things around us, including the animals. All right, so I talked about the turtle shell. So what happened? Why are we talking about 13 months and 28 days, but our calendar only has 12? So where did the 12th month go? And why are some of the months named the way that they are? It's odd because September on our calendar is the 9th month of the year. But if you know your Greek and Latin roots, SEP, Sev, means 7, okay? And October, OCT, oct, like octagon, is 8. November should be 9, like the word nova, okay? And then December, which stems from decim, or even just DEC, Decapolis means 10 cities. So December should be the 10th month, but on our calendar it's the 12th. So why is December the 12th month of the year, and what is the first, or the true first month of the year? We count it as January, but and we're going to look at some verses here in a minute, but April is actually the first month of the year, or should be. Okay? So the calendar should start in April and then extend and wrap around back to March, based on what we know in the Bible. If you go to Exodus chapter 12, and the word April, by the way, stems from, again, another Latin or Greek root, aprilis, and in Latin it means to appear or to open. So if something appears or opens, that's typically the beginning of something. So Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. Right. And this is God speaking to Moses. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. All right? And that's a bit. Okay. So, that would be the first month. Exodus chapter 13, the next chapter over, verses 3 and 4. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by the strength of the hand of the Lord brought you out of this place, there should be no leavened bread to be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Abib, or Abib, whatever. But anyway, that's the first month of the year according to what God told Moses, because that's the month that they came out of Egypt. That's when Moses led them out. So it's the new beginning, it's coming out of Egypt, and it's also the birth of this new nation. Once they get to the promised land, the land of Canaan, and they conquer that becomes theirs. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 16. And verse 1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God, for in the month of Abib the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt at night. Okay? And then one more, Leviticus. Go back to Leviticus chapter 23. Verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. So now we're tying it in with the Passover. And I won't go into that too much. Most of us are familiar with what the first Passover was. But it's the 14th day of this month right here. All right, so like I was saying before, a lot of times Rosh Hashanah is marked as a new year, right around the time of the Feast of Trumpets. And that's again because it's the different calendars that they use, but also different Jewish sects. And I'll get into that later. They make a determine which calendar that they're going to use. Also, there's a religious versus a civil calendar. and then there's the new nation versus the coming of the Messiah. All of these play into which calendar the Jews are using and for which reason. And so that's why I'm saying it's a little bit hard to make the determination as to when Jesus is coming back at the rapture. And we know that Revelation 3:3 says that we should be looking and that we can pinpoint that, I would say right down to the very hour. So we're constantly looking and trying to figure that out. But what calendar are we going to use? Like I said, we're currently using a Gregorian calendar, but what calendar is God using? And that's, I don't know. So that's, it's trying to make that determination, even amongst the two different Jewish calendars, which one is God using for his return. So, I don't want to go into too much about the Gregorian calendar. I guess I would. So I got a few more minutes and then I can tell I'm going to have to wrap it up and to be continued. But we have a start on it anyway. There's a reason why our calendar is skewed. It is interesting too that the Roman or Gregorian calendar is set up the way that it is. Alright, so for example, and this is how you know that in every aspect of our society, even our calendar and our days of the week are all named for pagan gods. The month of May, for example, is named for a demon or a god. Naaman is what it's named for. A demon, and I'm going to use lowercase g. June is the same way. Named for Judas. Not the Judas, but one of those Roman Greek gods. July was named for Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar felt that he should have a month named after him, so he gets his own month, and that's why when you put July in where it is, it pushes September from being the 7th month where it belongs to the 9th month. Because then also you have Augustus Caesar who decides he wants a month as well, and that's where you get the month of August. Now, July was originally called, I think it's pronounced Tillis. I'm just going to go with that. And August was called Quadtillis. And I know none of this makes any sense or seems that interesting at this point, but it does get better, I promise. So, going from there, so this would be your 4th month, I believe. Mark that out first. July, August. So, July would be Quadtillis. August would be Quintilis. Quad obviously means 4, quin would be 5. So the calendar is supposed to pick up from right there. You would have a missing month, which is called Sextilis, which means 6. Okay? And then obviously it's picking up from there, and then you have September, which is 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm almost out of time. I'm going to leave you in a spot where it doesn't make any sense, but that's what I'm going to have to do. The point is that you're going to see as we go further, and we're going to have to wait a couple of weeks for the conclusion, is that the months are arranged in a different order or a different place than where we are right now. And with that change, it makes it very difficult to determine when Christ is going to come back. But if we're following this calendar, which is the religious calendar for the Jews, if that's the calendar that God is following, then we can make a determination pretty easily as to when Christ is coming back. But anyway, I'm at 15 minutes already, so sorry to leave you hanging right there, but I will continue this whenever we do this again. So, all right, thank you.
We got comments on your video that says awesome beard.
I thought it was part of ZZ Top.
So I'm going to pick up from where I left off last time, but in case anyone wasn't here or people watching didn't see, I'm going to do a brief review on 13 months of 28 days. As we know, our current calendar, Gregorian calendar, has 12 months with varying number of days. And I think that we should return, if we could, to this right here. And in the previous video, I talked about how we can learn from nature, things that God has put in place for us, whether it be the stars or animals, what have you. So this is supposed to be a turtle shell, and I was using this as the example to demonstrate 13 months and 28 days. And I didn't count these out, but typically speaking, on most turtles, if you count the spaces on the outside, you'll get 28, and within you'll get 13. So it's kind of like God's calendar on the back of a turtle. What else did I cover? Other things that also cycle every 28 days, the moon and the ocean, they all cycle on 28 days. So it seems to make sense that that's what God would want us to do, is to cycle 28 days. Just like we have a 7-day week. So on the Jewish calendar, and I talked about there's a civil and also a religious calendar that the Jews use. So on the Jewish calendar, April is the first month. Okay, we start in January, but the Jews will start in April. And that's from Exodus 12:2 and Exodus 13:3 and 4. We talked about that before, so I won't go there again. So with that in mind, September, for example, should be the 7th month. That's what SEP is 7. October would be 8, oct is 8, like an octagon. And then 9 would be November and 10, December. But you can see here, that doesn't line up on our current Gregorian calendar. There's a reason for that. Also, some of the months would have different names than what we currently have. A lot of these are named for like Greek and Roman gods. Same with the days of the week, same with the planets, if you believe planets. Are all pagan in their origin as far as how they're named. And some of the months had different names. But somebody like Julius Caesar, who wanted a month named after him, it was originally called Quadtilis, but he now renamed it to July. Now quad means 4, so July should be the 4th month, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. August was originally called Quintilis, Quin is 5, but Augustus Caesar also wanted a month named after him, so that name changed as well. So with changing the calendar to where we start in January rather than April, it pushes September to the 9th month, which doesn't make sense because, like I said, Sep means 7, so it should be the 7th month. And then October, November, and December all push back as well, and they don't align anymore either. So like I said, July is originally called Quadtilis and was the 4th month. August was originally called Quintilis and was the 5th month. But with the Gregorian calendar starting the year with January, July then becomes 7, and August becomes the 8th month. Okay? So our calendar has 12 months of varying days. Some have 30, some have 31. February has 28, except on the leap year, then you have 29. So it's just kind of a mess. And there's a reason why it's been altered, and we'll get to that in a moment too. There is a missing month, because there should be 13 months of 28 days. On our current calendar, we have 12 months. So with that in mind, there should be a 13th month, and with the calendar starting, it should start in April. This is how the calendar should look 1 year. So we would start in April, and then May, okay, and then June, and like I said, July was renamed July because of Julius Caesar. It was originally called Quadtilis. August, named for Augustus Caesar, was originally called Quintilis. All right, so far that's our 1st month, 2nd, 3rd, 4, and 5. Now there's this missing month, which would have been called Sextilis, which means 6. So that would be your 6th month. All right, and from there, then you would have September, again, returning to its 7th position, October, November, and then December, and it would wrap back around to January, February, and March.
Oh,
So you would start in April, the year would end in March, and like I said, there would be 13 months. This month right here is missing from our current calendar, okay? And by doing so, one, we found that in the Bible, when the Jews went into Canaan, when they left Egypt, April was to be the first month. That's what April means. It's like a new beginning or a door opening. So that's the beginning. And then you would run through March in 13 months of 28 days. Our current calendar, we know that there's 365 days in 1 year. If you have 28 months, 13 months of 28 days, you're going to get 364 days. Okay? And then you would have 1 day, which would be like a resurrection day or a day of renewal, either way, which brings you up to 365. Okay? The reason why this has been changed, we know that there's been calendar manipulation, even with the Gregorian calendar, but especially going from this calendar to what we have now. That's been altered by the Roman Catholic Church, okay? And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. I think it confuses the issue when we come to the end times, and I have a little thing drawn up here, kind of like Brother Breaker does. The reason being is, if you read Revelation 3:3, it says that we can know the day and even the hour which Christ is going to come back, okay? But that's hard to do if your calendar is skewed. You're jumping from one calendar to the next, plus it's been altered from 13 months of 28 days to 12 months with varying days. So what I'm about to say now is speculation. So I just want to throw that out right now as a disclaimer. This next little part I'm going to talk about, I just found this when I was doing research, but there's the question of what day did Jesus die? And we know it was around Passover, because he was the Passover lamb, all right? So some sources will say that Jesus died on April 3rd. But yes, 14 as well, but this is, oh, okay, sure, yeah. So some people will say April 3rd. For example, in 2025, Passover will be on April 12th, all right? So it varies, it can move. So there's been calendar manipulation by the Roman Catholic Church. So there's other sources that will say that Jesus died on April 1. And this is kind of ironic, and again, it's just speculation, but it kind of makes sense. What is April 1st known as? April Fool's Day, right? So there's some who believe that we are fools for following a calendar that makes 0 sense and attempts to obscure the day that Jesus died. Not only the day that he born, but the day that he had died, because of the switch in the calendars and the alterations that have taken place just within the Gregorian calendar. So the difference in calendars makes it hard to pinpoint that day. And everybody's, I hope, is familiar with that day. If you go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, all right, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we'll look at verses 1 through 3, which says, and this is Paul talking, of course, "Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that day, as the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." So Paul mentions that day a couple of times, and he calls it specifically that day of Christ. And the day of Christ, we know, is right here, the rapture. The difference between the day of Christ and the day of the Lord. Hopefully you know that. I won't go into it now, I don't have time, but there's a difference. So that day or the day of Christ always refers to the rapture. So by skewing the calendar, it can make it really hard to determine when Christ is coming back. We do have some clues. If you go to Revelation chapter 3, verse 3, because a lot of my videos that I do are about the end times and trying to determine when Christ is going to return. And a lot of times it's easier to pinpoint the second coming and then count back 7 years for the rapture. And some people say that you're not supposed to do that because Jesus said during his earthly ministry that no one knows the day nor the hour except the Father himself. But that was during his earthly ministry, and a lot of time has passed since then. And Revelation 3:3 tells us something different, which came after his earthly ministry. So Revelation 3 verse 3 says, "Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know the hour I will come upon thee." So what he's saying is, if you're not watching, he's going to come upon you as a thief, and you won't even know the hour in which he's coming. And I've heard Brother Breaker talk about this. So conversely, if I am watching, then he won't come as a thief, and I can pinpoint it even to the hours, what it sounds like. Now, if I could get the year, I'd be happy with that. But to get it down to the hour, I'm not going to make that claim. But we do know this, with Revelation 3:3 in mind, we do know that Jesus fulfilled all of the spring festivals during his earthly ministry. So that leaves just the fall festivals. All right? And I believe he will fulfill those fall festivals starting with the rapture at the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? So if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52. Which says, "In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed." So Paul's talking about the rapture, how when Christ comes at the rapture, the dead in Christ come up first, and then those of us who are alive and remain will also join Christ in the clouds and get our glorified bodies. But he talks about the last trump, and usually in September is when the Feast of Trumpets is, and they blow the shofar 100 times. So I think Paul is saying that at that last trump, that 100th blow on that trumpet, that's when Christ is going to come back. The Antichrist will be revealed, and then we go up. So the Feast of Trumpets is usually in September. Sometimes it's in early October. But usually it's in September, which is the 7th month, which to me just makes more sense. Brother Breaker talks about the numbers in the Bible as well, but 7 is the number of completion.
Yeah.
Right now it sits as the 9th month, but again, I think that this is a much more accurate picture of what we should be using. I think it lines up with God's Word by far, but even scientifically speaking, I think it makes more sense. But with September being the 7th month, and that's usually where the Feast of Trumpets lands, and the only reason why it would vary, like this year it's going to be sometime in early October, but again, it's because the calendar has been skewed so much. We're running off 12 months of varying days. If that were realigned to 13 months of 28 days, then it would always land in September. Again, which makes it hard to determine when Christ is coming back. And I think that's the point. I think they're skewing that in kind of like what you were saying, with the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not the only ones, but they're notorious for predicting a day or a year when Christ is going to come back. And when it doesn't happen, it just destroys the faith of people. So we have to be really careful about when we're going to, if we are going to try to determine when Christ is coming back. But I think it'd be a lot easier if we're using the calendar that we're supposed to be using. Now the question there too is, like I said, the Jews have a civil and a religious calendar. And the civil calendar is starting us in April, because that's when they came out of Egypt and then into the land of Canaan. And then the other calendar that they use, their new year starts in September with the Feast of Trumpets. So it's really hard to determine, what calendar is God using. Is he using their civil calendar, their religious calendar, or for some strange reason would he use our Gregorian calendar? I don't think so, but that's what we're left with. So when you're predicting or trying to determine when Christ is coming back, the trick is trying to figure out the dates. Christ said we can know right down to the hour. Like I said, if I could get the year, I'd be happy with that. But it's gonna be hard because the calendar's been tampered with so much. Like I said, the Feast of Trumpets marks the new year on the Jewish calendar. So my question would be, which calendar do we use when determining the end times? I think that this here is probably the one that we would use. I think that this one makes the most sense, like I said, biblically speaking, but also scientifically speaking. I think that it narrows it down to the 13 months, and each month would have an equal number of days, which aligns with the cycles of the oceans and the moon. And then there's also biological stuff I won't go into that also cycle every 28 days. There's a reason for that, I think. So I actually got through that faster than I thought. I talk fast, so I could keep it within 15 minutes, but that's what I have. I hope that makes some sense to you. I made a disclaimer here. Last time everyone thought this might be an arena. I was selling tickets. I'm not. I'm not selling any tickets today, but that's what I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Yep.
Of course. Don't you think that maybe we should consider the religion calendar? Because for God, it will be more for the religion part than the civil.
Yeah, and the thing is when I tried to determine which one was the civil and which one was the religious, again, I got varying reports. So I don't know, that's the other thing too. I don't know if this one's the civil or the religious, or if the one starting in September is. Some people say one thing and some people say another. So again, I'm just speculating on that as well. But yeah, I would tend to think too that more of the religious calendar than whatever the Jews came up with as their civil calendar. The question is it when we came out of Egypt, or is it when they do the Feast of Trumpets? I just know that this calendar right here still would make more sense. And even if it is starting in September, I still believe it would be 13 months and 28 days. It's just that the year would start in September rather than April. But I think the numbers would still remain the same.
I don't know if you already gave that we're going to explain why we come up with this.
The over here?
People, yeah.
Yeah, well, the Catholic Church has a lot to do with that. They've obviously skewed the calendar. And like I said, Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, for notoriety or whatever else, wanted months named after them. So that changes the name of a couple of these months. But I think by starting in January and ending in December, I think that it just makes it confusing to try to pinpoint the end times. I really think that's the main reason. Again, because if people are running off that calendar, which we are, Western society, most of the world runs off the Gregorian calendar, that's what you become accustomed to, then you forget this. Most people aren't even familiar with this. I wasn't familiar with it until just recently. And so whenever I would try to do end time studies, I'm running off this calendar, which doesn't align with anything over here. The best we can do is again go with, we know that the rapture should happen around the time of the Feast of Trumpets, because I think Paul makes it clear with the last trump. But again, that would typically be in September. This year it'll be in October because of the difference in the calendars.
You think that the Catholic that merged with the paganism got this calendar maybe the way that they were?
Catholicism didn't even come into play till around 300 years after Christ. And Constantine was the guy that kind of made it the official religion. And what he did is he took a whole lot of paganism and mixed it with very little watered down Christianity, namely Catholicism. And that's what you get from Catholicism. It's a lot of paganism, a lot of rituals, the rosary, or doing the sign, or everything's a ritual. It's very ritualistic, like most pagan religions are. But yeah, that stems from, I would say, from Constantine, and obviously the Roman Empire was prominent at that time. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a mix between the two.
What is your YouTube channel?
What's that?
What is your YouTube channel?
it's-
Can you rank that up there for us?
I can give you this. It's got it all on there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. We didn't know that.
I'd like to see part one.
Yes, good
Yeah.
videos. I like his channel.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I was wondering,
Yeah, you should watch it.
I was gonna go there. Go ahead and say what your channel is. So
Oh, yeah.
on videos that I posted and Rob kind of posted, we had some complaints about background noise and whispering and stuff back here.
Gotcha.
And today we've got cooking going on and stuff, so there's probably gonna be some more background noise.
Sure,
So
yeah.
if you give your channel to where, if
Yeah, it's Crown of Thorns, and if you can look it up on YouTube, or if you plug in the actual YouTube address, because there are other channels with a similar name, it would be Crown of Thorns youtube.com/C/Crown of Thorns. So again, youtube.com/C/Crown of Thorns. It'll take you right to my channel. Yep, any other questions or
I was
comments? Oh,
So the Jewish calendar starts with the barley harvest. I don't know if you were gonna do any more on this or not.
I would like to going forward,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah,
So God set it up to where there's a stage in the growth of barley, and it's called Aviv, and it's called the month of Aviv.
yes,
So,
which is April.
yeah.
Yep,
So their day, or their year doesn't actually start until that barley is at a certain stage.
Oh,
So that's why, part of the reason why it could be later in a month or earlier in a month too, so.
yeah, yep, exactly. And that goes back to Job 12:7. I don't know if I wrote that up there, but Job 12:7, which tells us that we can learn from the things around us and that God is working with nature and uses nature to inform us of what he wants from us or what we should adhere to. Namely, like this right here, the back of a turtle shell. And I think Brother Breaker had said that they looked at some turtles and found that it was right. There's gonna be 28 around like this and 13 in the middle. And there could be some variances, obviously, sometimes, but for the most part, that's what you're gonna see.
So we can get here by just scanning the code too?
Yep, on that card, if you just scan that QR code, it'll take you right to the channel.
Great deal, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I didn't even know you had a channel. I just
Yeah,
tried
you
to-
did.
I never.
Yeah. Well, I figure we're here for what Brother Breaker brings to us. I'm not here to advertise or anything, but yeah, people ask, I'll say, yeah.
thank you.
I like his
Yeah.
videos, they're good. You guys
Oh,
should
thank
watch
you.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, it would be fun to dig into that. To
Yeah.
really dig into
Ah.
it.
Yeah, this is just as far as I've gotten so far. There's so much more out there, and again, like I said, some of it is speculation. So I made that disclaimer as to when Christ was born. But it does make sense. It kind of ties in with this why April 1st is called April Fool's Day. I've never known any other reason why that's what it's designated as, but it makes sense that if that's where our calendar is supposed to start, maybe that's something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'd be a whole lot to dig into.
Constantine changed they only had a small group of Christians,
Yeah.
but the majority of the people didn't trust that,
Mhm.
and so they were pagans.
Yeah.
And then in order to get them to enfold it into the Christianity, they wanted it to incorporate like the September,
Yeah.
November, December, and all that.
Yep. It's to appeal to as many people as possible, to make them, to appease them, the itching ears, or kind of like what a lot of your prosperity preachers do. Tell the people what they want rather than what they need, and they'll come and that's why Joel Osteen has arenas full, and a good church like this, we meet in a house.
Well, because as long as they feed the people what they want, the people feed what,
Yep. Tithing.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Most churches, if you go to, they're gonna harp on tithing. And Pentecostal churches, Assembly of God, the Charismatics are all about tithing. But that's how they fuel their projects and pay their. And I'm a capitalist to the core. I think if you can make money, then make it. But I also think that when you have people in your church, especially in the economy we have now, that are suffering, and your pastor has 2 beachfront houses and 4 Escalades, I think there's a problem there.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Or
can make the money,
airplanes.
but what are you doing with the money? What are you doing with those tithes that are coming in? I don't know how many poor people you're helping, but I know you've got 4 Escalades. It came from somewhere.
Yeah.
I think there's
right.
a problem there.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like that Baker guy, the pastor Baker, the TV evangelist.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I don't really watch them. I just know like Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyer and all these people.
He was a TV
Okay.
evangelist.
Yeah, when we were in Houston a couple of months ago, we were driving someplace and we went past Joel Osteen's church, and it's just like, it was bigger than the zoo that we went to.
Like a palace.
Yeah, it is. It's just crazy. And I know when they had all that flooding down there, not this most recent time, but some time back, and he refused to open his church up to people.
Yeah,
So they
back
could
on
take
the
refuge.
flood.
That should tell you everything you need to know about people like that.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Yeah, you have all that room, that great big building, and you won't open it up to people that need it.
That was definitely.
Everything is about money.
Yeah,
We used to own a church building up in North Alabama.
okay,
And when the hurricane hit and they were evacuating Louisiana,
yeah,
they wanted churches to put people up.
yeah,
So I contacted the Salvation Army.
yep,
I said, we've got 2 bathrooms, we've got shower facilities, we've got a full kitchen, and we've got room for about 8 people.
yeah.
Well, your church is too small, we can't use you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
It's all about the money.
Yeah, too small. But, you know, it's always the people that are willing to help that get shut down. And the people that could help won't.
Well, it's the people that wanna help that get shut down.
Yeah.
It's the people that want to profit that,
Yeah.
that do it.
Well, it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, you know, most people want the government to take care of everything, because nobody wants to take that responsibility for themselves. And initially, it was never like that. Our government was never supposed to be big enough to sustain something like that. It was left to the churches. Churches were supposed to step up. Well, churches have kind of backed off, and now we're left with big government. I think it'd be a whole
Government's
different
getting
video,
too
but
big for its britches.
yeah, definitely.
Do you have a podcast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
What's that?
Do you have a podcast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah, my videos are released every Sunday at 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Except for this Sunday, because I did a video recently on my YouTube channel, and I talked about certain things that people were told to put inside themselves, if you know what I'm talking about. I won't say it here. And because I mentioned that word, they took my video down and they gave me a strike on my channel,
Oh.
so I can't upload for 7 days. So my channel's just sitting there. Yeah, it's really bad with YouTube. It can
You
be.
need to try Rumble or
I did.
other
I moved to Rumble.
Brighteon.
Have
Yeah.
you tried Brighteon?
No, but I did start a Crown of Thorns channel on Rumble, and I put the videos up there. I'll continue to use YouTube for what I can because it's the larger platform. But yeah, anything that's even remotely controversial, I have to put it over
Well,
on Rumble.
instead of the word, just look in the video and say that.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I was using different words
Yeah.
instead of that, but they've caught on. There's
Uh,
certain words, like I won't even say it now because it'll get flagged again.
So
Wow.
this other
They
channel,
pinch.
will this take us to the one they took down?
No, I'll have to give you, I can give you a different address for the Rumble channel.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd love to hear it.
Yep, will do. Yep, I'll text it to you or something. Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.